introduce our most amazing producer who does this tirelessly every term and does a spectacular job. And tonight, bringing in, incredible guests that you're going to flip out over. So I'm going to turn over to Trula. She's the goddess of free by three. Oh, I'm Sean Adams. I'm the chair of graphic design. Hi. How are you? She's the goddess of free by threes.
That's right.
And tonight is today is Sean's birthday.
Happy birthday!
Yeah, 78. Yeah.
And the thing about being as old as Sean is you don't ask him how old he is.
I know.
Because it's not too long. Anyway, I am Petrula, and I am so happy you're here with 3x3. The way a 3x3 works is I invite 3 different professionals to come and speak on a particular topic. And tonight it's about taking risks. Here at ArtCenter, we want to encourage our students to take risks, but then make it nearly impossible for you to do that. Right? So what does this mean? What is it like to actually be taking risks? And what does all this mean? And I think tonight's lineup is really help us unpack this idea and figure it out. So I have the pleasure of introducing to you 3 amazing professionals. We have Shri Musgrave, who is an astronaut, surgeon, pilot. There are more titles than I've ever heard on a 3x3 and a professor of art.
That's right.
So if you want to hear more from Shri, you can speak to Stan Kong, because Stan invites him to come and speak for mostly the product design and grad ID group. So please let Stan know, and we'll make sure that you know when Shri comes back. Because right now, one of his titles is Professor of Art and Design, which is super cool for us. And we have Shri Jambhekar, who is one of our faculty members, and we're so pleased to have him here. He's going to really help us understand kind of the idea of the factors of risk, like what are these risk factors. And then I have a colleague who I've known for a number of years, Jennifer Golub, from a company called Musgrave, which is an incredible offshoot of an ad agency using the power of that agency to create projects that really make an impact globally on social and environmental cause-oriented work. And
That's my first test. That's fuel. And it ain't coffee. So I got Mark back there. That's Mark. That's Mark Petit back there. Without him, I'm dead. I don't go anywhere. So I always look after the people who are looking after me. It's an incredible privilege to be here. I love ArtCenter College of Design. Been here for 13 years. I hope I'm going to be here for another 13. And so this is a great topic tonight. It's made me think an awful lot about what my own life has been and how things went. But I'm going to go very fast. So I see patrol at 7:36. And whether or not I'm finished, I will sit down at 7:56. Because I've got a lot of, that's the way it goes. So if I get going fast, because looking at the clock, I'm back there. So the whole topic has made me think a lot about what my life has been along the way. And so here we go. I just adore this thing. And so that's a child gate. That's a child gate to stop them kids from climbing up the stairs because they're too young to climb the stairs. Okay? So my lesson in life is, man, you don't take no for an answer, and there's some other way to get there. And man, the kids have found it out. So they're taking some risk, but they're getting where they got to get. So that's what life is all about. We're going to talk about the adventures of life. Now, what is an adventure? An adventure is off the beaten path. An adventure is a journey. It's a quest. It is a travel. It is a pursuit. It is a seek. It is a search. That's what an adventure is. And, of course, there's no guarantee when you're taking an adventure, no guarantee that you're going to get to where you're trying to get. That's life. Have some fun doing it. So my philosophy is, if this life ain't one big adventure, turn it in and get another one. So what is the life of adventure? It's the next opportunity. It's what y'all going to do tomorrow. It's the next mountain you're going to climb. It's like a playing field. You get dropped on some playing field in life, and you want to get to the finish line. You got objectives. You got to meet the world's expectations. You got challenges. That's what it's all about. So now, playing field, challenges, get the job done. You get on the new thing, the new mountain you've climbed, the new playing field, and you give it your best. It's an ethical thing to do. But the more you put in, the more you get out. The more you jump in and try to do the best, the more you learn about that system and take with you. Figure that thing out. Get yourself up to speed, get it done. And I added the or not for this presentation, because you may not get it done, you may fail along the way, and that is okay. That is an adventure. They don't always turn out. Learn from it. And most important, take it with you. So that's some people don't emphasize. Take it with you. Every single experience, every scenario, everything, take it with you and keep it moving. That's my childhood front yard. This is Western Massachusetts, a dairy farm. That's my childhood front yard, a 500-acre playground you're looking at right there. And that is the posture of exploration. Curiosity. You take any 3-year-old and you put them anywhere, and doggone it, to end the game. They're excited about the situation. They explore everything. They're in that game. And they use their imagination. They explore things, but they see, what does this? What is it? Where it's going? What does it mean? And they explore the possibilities. Now, that is me. Exactly 80 years ago on my farm. Yes. Yeah, man. It's 80 years ago I'm there. The story Musgrave posture of exploration. Now, that's another look at things. So here's the barn, and it's looking down the river toward the Housatonic River. It's a hill going down there. This is my first tractor. That's the F-20. Well, at the age of 7, I've not been checked out on the tractors yet. But all kids, they want to be adults, right? They want to do what the big guys do. So I jump on this tractor, and I'm pretending to drive the tractor. Well, you push on the brake, and as you tractor people know, you've released the little lock on the floor down there. And so me and the tractor heading toward the river. Unfortunately, the fireman's left the tractor pointed at the river, and I'm going in the river. Nothing I can do about it. Don't know what's happening. So I put the tractor in the river. Drowning was least of my problems, because the old man not nice on any circumstance. You're going to get a hell of a lot worse with his tractor in the river. So it's a dumb thing to do, but I ain't dumb enough to tell anyone I've done this. I ain't going to tell them. But I got a problem in critical thinking, like the philosophers. I got to tell the world what a tractor is that's under the water without telling them I put it there. So that's a difficult situation. I'm looking around. There's some wooden lawn furniture out there, and that's my farm right there. I look at the furniture. I look at the river. I said, my goodness, I went to the barn, and I chained the lawn furniture to the tractor. So the old man sees his lawn furniture floating in the river, which is incredibly weird, but he got to get it back. He can't get it back. It's chained to something, and that's why I showed the old man where the goddamn tractor is without telling him I did it. Okay. And the farm hands took all the heat for doing this. Now, the fireman's privately spoke to me. He said, Story Musgrave, you're the most brilliant little kid we ever ran into to have done that and put that on us. Man, you're going somewhere. And yes, doggone it, I went somewhere. So I am a problem solver. If nothing else, Tom, I'm a problem solver. And so that fireman, 1943, going to try to make the baler tie to twine knots. This is 43. He cannot make the baler tie to twine knots. So the balers come out the back end and collapse. But they're creative on the farm. They got an 8-year-old. They got an 8-year-old, that's me. He's going to tie the knots with leaving those pliers, you know, and pull the twine, tie the knots. And if I don't get my hands out of there for the next act, they're going to leave them in there permanently. And the dust's so heavy I can't even see my own hands. So that's me. I'm a product of child labor. And man, it gets worse from here. I got run over so many times. I got run over so bad one time, I got my head broken. And I had to have neurosurgery to go chase the darn bleeds. I got the holes in my head still. And then I came out of that with amnesia, and I came out of that with seizures, and they still have me working farm machinery while having seizures. Hey, that's a bad mix, folks. Hey, but that's okay. So it got me here. You know, understand it got me here July 19th it got me here at ArtCenter. Without that, I wouldn't got here. So I don't mind any part of that. But anyway, I'm product of child labor. So at the age of 9, driving every tractor and truck on the place. And it's like, you know, truck, a load of hay going down the road in this truck. And the state police stop the truck. They can't see ahead. No one driving the truck. They got to stop it. And they open the door. Young man, you can't be 16. No, sir, I'm 12. And so be careful. So you go from there. Now, my first entrepreneurial experience was, that's my old farm. So I got maples everywhere. So at the age of 13, I initiated to have my own maple syrup company. I took the risk to have a company. It doesn't matter if I fail, it's okay. But I'm going to try. So you drill a hole, auger in the thing, you put the spout in there, you hang the buckets on, you empty the sap into this, you put the cans on a toboggan, you ride downhill to the furnace, there's the furnace, and up top, you put the raw sap in here, and it flows like this. And when it gets to be a certain weight, you take it off. You boil 60 gallons of sap, make maple syrup. I had a very successful company at 13. I rode my bike around the county, and I found this handful of farmers, and they got these little airplanes. It's not an airport, it's a big pasture. They got a shed, they got a fuel pump. And I said, my God, and they're driving a tractor. So I just went to work. This little farm, all I know how to do is work. I helped them. I became an airplane mechanic. I mowed the lawn, I did everything. And the farm kids the farmers look at, my God, this kid's a wonderful little kid. So they took me flying. Every time I went flying, they took me flying. So one day, this farmer lands the airplane, and he's leaving the airplane. I said, where are you going, sir? He says, I have a nice ride story. I guess he wants me to take it by myself. That's okay. It's just a tractor with wings. I can do that. So away I went, and I sold at the age of 13. But I knew what I was doing, perfectly safe. Now, the farm went under, the farm went broke when I'm 16. The farm went broke, so I became a heavy construction equipment mechanic, oiler, and grease monkey at the age of 16. And so, but now, very important here. When you learn stuff as a kid, you're wired for it. You didn't just learn it, you're wired. It changes you. You're part of it. Mechanics is part of my heart and part of my soul. So I did incredibly well. But I did well enough that this is a real world for me, and I left school. I made the decision I ain't going to graduate from high school. Is that risk or is that not risk? A lot of people say that's not risk because I don't know. Is it risk or not? Hey, kids, if we got high school kids, don't you dare drop out of high school and say, Story said it's a good thing to do. It ain't. Don't do that. So, anyhow, I left high school. Now, we finished the Massachusetts Turnpike. That's the construction equipment. And I don't have high school, so what do you do when you have no education? You don't have a job, you do this. And so the other way back then, when you joined the Marines, the other way you got in the Marines was the judge told you to go to jail or go to the Marines. So the Marines are a good deal. Now, the Marines know farm kids. They know farm kids. They're mechanics. They made me an airplane mechanic, 3,000 horsepower motor. I'm looking after that motor right there. And that's my base, K6 Korea. There's my airplanes. I went incredibly fast with the Marines because I'm wired for mechanics and I got the discipline. Never another touch the machine unless the way they taught you by the book. You cannot create the maintenance, so you change the pedigree of the machine. I became a crew chief. I own that airplane. It's my airplane. I eat and sleep with it. The pilots borrow it from me to go to war, but I own it. I own that machine. So I'm the one that goes to head shed. Green check mark, this airplane up, airworthy to go to war. I signed up 100 things, so I see meet specifications. I am a teenager signing military airplanes off as airworthy to go to war with one stripe called Private Musgrave. You see how fast I went in that kind of world. And so I meet the pilots in line and send them off. I strap them in. I do the pre-flight check. They don't pre-flight the airplane. I settle the switches and I send the pilots off. Well, there's a lot of my pilots in my airplanes didn't come home. They didn't tell me why they didn't come home. My airplane dropped them out there. They never told me. They just give me a new airplane for the next day. So that's a teenager. Your pilots don't come home. So that was Korea. We left Korea. Those were my Douglas 80 Skyraiders. Going aboard the carrier, USS Wasp. My pilot, my airplane, and my motor. That's it, man. I'm responsible for that kind of stuff. So the way we go, now this is a straight deck carrier. So there's none of the catapult stuff. You fly. You just fly the thing off. When you get to the end, you either go swimming or you go flying. One of the two. That pilot's going to make it out. My own brother, ironically, was on the same carrier, USS Wasp, flying the same 80 Skyraiders. He went to order, but the carrier ran over him. So I lost my brother doing that kind of stuff. I finally ended up on Kaneohe, Marine Corps Air Station, right there. Now, I've been there. I've been back there 30 times. I don't leave though. It's a lesson I got for you. Don't ever leave behind an asset that you got. I'm a Marine, always a Marine. And I look at how I bring Marines and how they get the job done to other corporations and other people and the spirit and to you. So that's my final base. But I got to leave the Marines because I can't go anywhere education. I got to get some education. I understand that now, but I don't know where to go. So one pilot kind of looking after me a little, I asked him where he went to school. He said, I went to Syracuse. And I asked him, do you like the place? He loved the place. Okay, I'll go to Syracuse. I have no other guidance. I go to Syracuse. Okay. So we go to Syracuse. Problem is they didn't take me. Well, that's not going to stop me. I showed up anyway. I'm in the grass out here asking people how to fix the situation. Go see the dean. So I went and knocked on the dean's doors. A whole bunch of people asked. I just charged through, and here's the dean. Are you the dean? Yes, sir. I'm a product of child labor. I never finished school. I'm just back from the Marines, and sir, but I'm ready to go to work. Okay, you ready to go to work, sir? He looked at me for 1 second, and he said, of course, sir. He walked me out from matriculate this gentleman. Okay, so I'm in. Okay. Back to this again, folks. There's another, don't take no for an answer, there's another way to get there. And people say it wouldn't happen today. It would happen today. It's a human situation. You can't turn this kid, no college could have turned this kid down. So many university. Now, I've been trying to survive my whole life. Deal with the factors. Deal with the details. You're trying to get somewhere in life. You're trying to get to the finish line. You must identify the factors going to help you and the factors stop you from getting there. You've got to identify them and control them. And so I found out at the university, if you can quantitate them, there is a math and statistics that will take care of that situation. And so there you go. 20-year-old farm kid got in this kind of business. I loved every bit of it. Control them, heard them cast to the finish line. Well, this is all great stuff, but I missed the Marines, so I went to active reserve. They didn't have airplanes for me, so I drove tanks. I was also a tank mechanic. My tank broke. I had it fixed before they filled out the paperwork. And I also did heavy equipment. And so, of course, I do heavy equipment, so I'm doing all that going to school. I'm making so much money going to college. I got this room, and the bed full of cash, the bureau full of cash, the floor, there's cash everywhere in the room. I got to do some of the cash. What's all the cash? Well, you remember the hay bales? And what does farm kid do? You just throw grain for hay bales. Well, I took up wrestling in high school. The rest of the kids take up weightlifting. 5 years ahead of them, they can't possibly catch me. So I'm undefeated, a wrestler in high school for 4 years. Now I got the combat training from the Marines. I go to Syracuse as a freshman. I said, God, you got a wrestling team. I joined the wrestling team, and it's called room, board, and tuition. They pay for the whole damn thing. But you remember the GI Bill from the Marines? They pay for the whole thing, too, and they don't talk at each other. So again, twice. The tanks is number 3, and the bulldozer number 4. I'm making 4 times the money I need to go to school. So you know what I buy? I buy this thing here. So now you designers, I ain't got time. I got to go faster. I got to go faster, Patrol. But, you know, why is that the most beautiful out of 7 years? That's a great question. Out of 7 years of Corvette, why is that it? Probably the curves. Okay, but I got to keep going. I took up flying. I don't know why. I just like to fly. Now, don't say I'm heading for space. There ain't no space yet. People ask me, always want to be an astronaut? In the 1930s, I don't want to be an astronaut. Or the 40s or the 50s, there were none. So I don't know any of this. So what you doing in life? You do the best you can. And you bite off one, you climb one mountain after another. But you don't know the final destination. So these are some of the airplanes I own. My Musgrave T-34, 7 years old. That's in its current colors. Off to UCLA. Got into big computers. But basically, majored in operations research system engineering. I became an operator on the biggest computer in the world. But I also became a mechanic because of relations. They're vacuum tube. None of you know what a vacuum tube is. They had hundreds of vacuum tubes. When one burns out, I was the first one to find the signature, which one burned out. So that's that. But from machine learning and computers, I said, my God, I'm interested in the brain. Computers work this way. How's the brain work? But doggone it, I'm on the ground floor of the information age. Hey, leave it alone, story. Leave the friggin' brain alone and stay with the computers. I can't leave it alone, folks. So you think she can leave that alone? No. So that is curiosity which drives you forward, man. It is excitement about the new thing. So away you go. It's another big fork in the road. I don't know why that fork is there in Pasadena, but I need it, so I'll plagiarize it. There's a fork in his roads. It's a fork in the road, and you do those things. I'm going to go back to Syracuse or done a pay work. I'll do my pre-med. So I have no pre-med. And so, but I'm going across the Ohio River, and they run an incredible town. Marietta, Ohio, 230 years old. And I'm driving through the town, and my God, it's a college, too. I love this place. That's all there is to it. I find the administration building. I says, you got pre-med courses here? And they look at me funny. We are a college, sir. Of course we do. Do you have an application? Yeah, we got one of them, too. I did my pre-med here. Hey, what's the risk? Is the risk? Who knows? Is Marietta accredited? Who's ever heard of the place? I don't give a damn, man. I love the place, and I'm going here. I'll worry about getting medical school later. Medical school application, I took all the tests. I filled out their forms. I had one typewritten page, and I put this on the top. Hey, folks, this is the only page that matters. It's who I am, and it's what I'm going to do for you. You got it? Okay, where'd we go? Well, I'll fix that. Did we, is it me or is it you? I'm okay here, but I'm okay here. Do I need to send it back to the projector, Mark? Or do you want me to send it back to the projector? I can escape and send it back to the projector, or you think it's something else? Let me escape, and I'm going to send it back to the projector. Well,
I think it should be it. Let's try.
Think of it as a tractor.
Let's see.
I think I'm okay here. It's on the screen. The screen's working okay. I don't know what more I can do.
So let's have Mark take a look at that, and also just to see if this main computer works. If that
Of
is
course.
the case, we might transfer your files. And
Of course.
Just let me ask him that.
Of course, I have it on flash drive. I also have it on the cloud. If I get run over on the way, you can still play it.
So why don't we do this? Can we take his file off that computer and put it on this
throw it
one?
on here, yeah,
Okay,
for
do you have a little drive? Shri, do you have an extra drive? Oh, of course he's already.
Cool.
Calculated risk.
Sorry about that.
Funny enough, it's called ArtCenter, 3x3, 2018. Final.
Yeah, man, okay. Thank you. Which one of these is it?
It's called ArtCenter. Down to ArtCenter. ArtCenter, 3x3, final, the final. That's it right there.
This one here?
Yes, sir.
Aircraft design final?
No, aircraft design. Oh, God.
There it is.
2018.
There it is, right?
Yes.
I think I got it.
I taught aircraft design 2 lectures ago at ArtCenter.
So this is going to be your new clicker here. Same deal.
46 and enter. That's part of PowerPoint, 46 and enter.
Oh, you could just type it in. Well, I
You can
found it
type
here.
it in.
I found it here.
Okay.
Or here, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so
Bring
Mark's
it up.
going to see if that can be
Yeah.
switched up and, okay, good. Thanks, Story, for your patience.
Patience.
Yeah.
We stopped the clock.
We stopped the clock. Let's definitely stop the clock.
I guess the listeners like to mention that.
That for check.
Well, this computer was doing fine. Everything is working on it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's the, somehow,
So,
yeah. Mark's got a handle on it.
shall we have a discussion while we...
Did you make it to medical school
Yes, I did.
from that college?
From that application I turned in, I got in every medical school in the country.
Oh, wow.
They understood this is a problem solver. They understand he's a creative and he's going to get the job done. He's going to get the job done. So, in the Columbia, I ended up at Columbia Presbyterian, Columbia Medical School. I got in all of them, but I had great interviews there and I just loved the place. That's it through it. And so, in the latest alumni magazines, they have stories about this dean who saved 2 or 3 slots in the class for unusual people. You know, and I was one of them. As you're going to see when we get going, I ended up medical school. Out of a class of 140, I was 140th in the medical school. However, I got accepted for my neurosurgical residency as a sophomore 5 years ahead of everyone else, despite the fact I'm 140th in the class. So no one's asking for my grades. They want me. And so that's a differentiated approach, like about everything I do in life. So, but the question is, was I taking risks? I understood how bad a student I am. Sitting in a classroom, taking all these lecture notes and giving them back during the exam is not my game. My game is being in the lab and publishing 20 significant papers as a medical student and presenting the papers at very important congresses. So every hospital, every university, they're all after me. And Columbia says we got to hang on to this guy, so they gave me a residency, approval to a residency as a sophomore. So away you go. So it's a differentiated approach, but I didn't know that was going to work. And so, you know, was I taking risks? I felt fine about what I was doing. Did I take risks by being almost walking out of medical school with me? He wasn't beating up on me. He was in tears behind his head. Story, kind of, we just want to graduate. We didn't want to hang on to you. We want you to graduate. You've got to give me a little more. Either way. So, that's the medical school. But it's a differentiated approach. You find yourself in some other game. And so you're working parallel in high school, but you're a mechanic, and, you know, and so you have all these other things going on in life, and the books are not helping you survive life. They're not helping you get done what you got to get done. So you accept the fact you're not going to graduate from high school, and it's the most marvelous thing that ever happened to me. I didn't graduate. I did the Marines. I did the Marine Corps aviation, and I started on a path of aviation and aviation mechanics. I'm going to get to the rockets and Hubble later on. And so, you know, it's the way life's happening. So you're doing the best you can, and you don't know the destination. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. But Petrulla's got a very interesting question, is how much risk, Story, did you ever take? I don't know how much risk I took. I always had faith. And so, in my picture of the 3-year-old and curiosity out there, as a 3-year-old, I went in the forest out of Berkshire County alone at night. I had the faith that whatever is in the forest is going to look after me. My mother let me go. I'm a 3-year-old in the forest alone at night. But I had the faith. The faith is whatever is out there will not only not harm me, it's going to look after me.
So faith has been a big part in my willing to deviate from what Petrulla has called the safe and the proven path. We as design students, are we afraid to leave the safe and the proven path? And so, but I've always had the faith that I can deal with the consequences that I myself, put on myself. You go to Marietta College, is that going to get you into medical school? I don't care. I love the place. So I'm one that comes from the heart. From my heart and from my passion. Now what I love, I'm going to do that. That's it, folks. And I will tolerate the consequences that I produce, for myself.
So Story, we have a couple of options.
Yes.
One is not ideal, but it's possible. The projector may need to be just restarted, which takes, because it's an old projector, it takes almost 10 minutes.
Yes.
So I was wondering, we may just turn this around. It's not the ideal projector for your slides, but it helps people see.
We can continue.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's going to be a little difficult for those of you back there to see.
But I will understand the view, and my conversation will be, tailored to the fact that, like the question, I will tailor to the fact you may not see it that well.
So what I'm going to do is turn this around, and then we'll put it in presenter mode.
Yes, and away we go.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'm going to just redo this so you guys can see only one image, and then we'll be back on. Can you make that not presenter slide? Sorry about that.
Let's see.
Are you restarting, Mark?
Yeah, I'm restarting.
Story does this kind of thing.
Yes.
That's
You can fix Hubble. Mark can get this projector going.
Well, if you need any help back there.
Story, what do you mean by faith? When you use faith in that context, can you elaborate on what that word means to you?
I guess it's just confidence. When I go in the forest alone at age 3, it's faith. I have the faith that whatever is there is going to look after me, not hurt me. Have I used faith in the wrong way?
No.
Or am I confident that it's okay? I think faith is a good word. And I have faith.
Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, thank you. I knew my life was in your hands. Yes. Well, it may be related to spirituality. It may be related, I'm a massively spiritual person, so it may be spiritual as opposed to religious, that I have faith that whatever consequences I have produced by doing things that I love as opposed to rationality, that after that's all done, I will be able to deal with the consequences. So I think that's it. So, okay. We're on a roll. And so I'm in the computer, so let's say it's 8:04, so I'll finish it. I'm going to finish at 8:15. Sorry. I'll finish at 8:15. So I'm in the big computers at UCLA, and I get the curiosity about the brain, and I said, my God, I'm on the ground floor of the information field. And I said, just leave it alone, Story. I can't leave it alone, and she can't. Curious George, look, what are we going to do with this? That kid cannot leave that alone. And so that's what curiosity is about. It's a passion to pursue. I got the passion to pursue. The fork in the road, run into Marietta College, and doggone it, love the place, I'll do that. This is my application to medical school, which you may not be able to read it, but I'm a tank driver, I'm an airplane mechanic, I'm an airplane pilot, all that kind of stuff. But basically, if you look at that thing, I'm a problem solver. I'm going to fix your problem. So I got in all the medical schools, so were Columbia Presbyterian, Columbia Medical School, George Washington Bridge, that you'll see. Well, sorry, didn't show up so good. That's what I got, and I love the place. But I'm going to class the first week, and I say neuro on the door. Neurosurgery, I don't care. It's neuro. That's nerve. So I knock on his door, and I go in there and say, I want to work here. Who are you? I'm a medical student. We don't have those in here. That's all right. I'm going to figure this place out, and I'll work for nothing. You're hired. So if you can't get somewhere, you tell me you'll work for nothing. So I got hired. Thereafter, recording in single brain cells with a 1 micron electrode, we're getting the potentials of the single cells, and they're going to stimulate different parts of the brain, and we will be the first person in the world to figure out patterns of the brain. So that's what I'm into. But these professors are unable to pull these electrodes. So they got this machine. So to pull electrode, you got a capillary tube, you put a certain tension on it, and you put the heat in the middle, and you create that electrode. They put the settings in this machine, they hit the button, the machine ain't gonna come. They've been stalled for months. They cannot produce this. I took the machine apart. I put that process under a microscope where I watch it real time. In this rheostat, I got the tension. In this rheostat, I got the heat. And I manually control the situation, and I produce whatever electrodes I want. I give them to the full professors, and they tell, these are great and those are not so great. And I could tell by looking at the structure of the electrode which one's going to work. So I, for the first time in months, was able to produce perfect electrodes for them. So I'm starting to take over the lab, which I did. The manipulators, they're so careful trying to get down to get a thing, but the respirations and the arterial pulse of the brain is bigger than the cell, so they can't get there. Me, I got the drum beat. So I do this on the manipulator to match the arterial pulsations, and I get the data they can't get. And finally, I came up with dropping the electrode in, it's floating on the brain. So I helped them out to all this kind of technology, and I had great hands. So I looked at the surgery they're doing on the experimental animals, and I came in at 4 in the morning, and I did all the surgery too. So when the bosses come in at 8, I got everything set out. It's all ready to roll, and we do the research. So, of course, I got good hands, like you see there, from all the work I've done. It's all the same, whether it's a tank or an animal. So there you go. Now, like I've been talking about, taking notes in the lecture hall and giving them back in exams, I'm in the real world, and I'm doing real stuff, and people love me, and we're getting the job done. And the lecture hall is boring as hell. So I don't put no time in it. So at the end of the sophomore year, I'm 140. I have 140. But I am publishing very significant papers in all the journals. I'm presenting my own research, and so I'm already established. I can go wherever I want to in medicine. Everyone is looking at this kid, and they want this kid. So Columbia approved me for neurosurgical residency as a sophomore 5 years ahead of everyone else. Now, I admit, I know what luck is. I knocked on that door, and they needed me. They may have wanted a scientist, which I'm not. I knocked on the door, and they needed a mechanical genius with imagination. That's luck. Sometimes luck helps, sometimes it don't. But anyway, I know that's luck. I did this across the river. I'm in medical school across the river. I just like to fall on airplanes. How could you possibly do that? I got to speed up here. I know when I got to finish. So, engage interaction with everyone. I learned how to do things well. I don't want risk. I got together with that center, and we worked on best practice. How damn good can we get? When I left medical school, and here we had 300,000 jumps and 0 fatalities. I know how to get the job done right when you need to. I ran into this man here, Ben Eisman. My God, I heard about him, so I went and found him. He's a Harvard-trained doctor, trauma surgeon. He's not in the MASH hospitals back there. He took the beaches with the Marines. He's with the Marines. When they get hit, he's on them. Hey, that's my kind of person, man. I'll follow him to the ends of the world. So he's my man. I'll go do my surgical training with him. I don't care where he goes. He went to University of Kentucky. They haven't even graduated first class. It's a brand new place. He's the first chief of surgery. I'll be in the first intern. Where's that going? I mean, is that my medical career? I can go wherever I want. Why should I go there? Because I'm going to follow. Hey, why am I going there? I'm going to follow this man here. Okay. So, am I taking risk? Who knows? I don't care. I'm going there. So I'm in my surgical training, National Academy of Science, and NASA. I read in Science Magazine. They are going to have a program of flying formally trained scientists in space. And my first reaction is, for God's sake, leave me alone. I'm trying to grow up. I'm trying to stay with something. For God's sake, just leave me alone. I can't leave it alone. One more time, she says, I can't leave it alone. No, I can't. Now, that's another fork in the road, and so away we go. Now, is that program really going to happen, and can I get selected? Should I leap off and commit myself to being a scientist astronaut, or should I hang on to my surgical training? Should I wait until I have the opportunity? I can't wait, man. I'm committed to that leap. So at the end of the year, I told my poor boss I'm leaving. And so he said, where are you going? To go into space? He said, how can I help? He's that kind of guy. So, aerospace medicine, I got me an MS in biological physics, and I took a minor aeronautical engineering, you see. And they asked us to come up with a class project. The class project I came up with for the whole class is the aerodynamics of the free-flying human body. So I have been a parachutist. I took up parachuting back there. So my project is the aerodynamics, never studied before, the free-flying human body. And so that's me. That's me, centuries ago. And I turned the project into that. So we did that. I have no stories to tell you about parachuting. Now, I got to increase aeronautical skills. I took up gliders. That's my sailplane, towed gliders. I got my airline transport. That's PhD in the Twin Bonanza. I did air shows in my Belanca decathlon. That's the hardest. Yes, story, Musgrave. What's the hardest job I ever had in my life? That's it. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the mind. It's just terrible. And you got to follow the checklist, man, of where am I doing? And the audience loves. They love the maneuvers. You know what a maneuver is for me? It's a goddamn earth avoidance maneuver. I just got to avoid the earth every time I do the darn thing. Okay, I made it in the program. We had 6,000 applicants. They all had doctorates. They all done research. And 7 of us got to space. So child labor came through again, man. I made it, I made it again. But the same day I moved to Houston to become an astronaut, this great guy became chief at University of Colorado and Denver General. He got on the phone to his story, Musgrave, I miss you. If you can get away from NASA for 3 days a month, I will turn you into the world's best trauma surgeon. I says, you're okay, let's go do that one. So I'm now a trauma surgeon. So for the next 26 years, every month I went up to Denver General, and I was a trauma surgeon. So that's Denver General Trauma Surgery. Now, as soon as I got into space flight, I got right into spacewalking. Right, it was a natural. A spacewalker got to do work. As you know, I've been working on everything my whole life. I know how to get the job done. I know how to work. As a physician, I know the ergonomics of work. I know the metabolism of work. I know the suit knock out my body, how do I play the suits. You put the helmet on, your closed-loop physiology. Your temperature is what the suit does for you. What you breathe is what the suit gives you. So as a physiologist, I was that too. Now the procedures from the military and the process, all that, and the child labor, the upper body strength. So I got into that. I'm doing vacuum testing for Apollo capsules before Apollo. We went on to the moon, the shuttle program. I picked up Hubble in 1975. They told me 1975, story, Musgrave, you lead the team to look after every possible failure Hubble Space Telescope can get into and what you're going to do with a spacewalk. I didn't just go fix it. I was on Hubble for 18 years. I've been on it for 42 years now. I've been Hubble's doctor, if you get right down to it. So over the years then, I got to do it looking like this. I got to keep going, speed up here. That's it. Look at every possible failure it can get into, the cause, and bring it back, bring the total system back. So I did do the first shuttle spacewalk on Challenger's first flight then because I helped design the suit. So I kept doing Hubble. I did other missions. I'm working in parallel. I'm doing Hubble. I'm flying other missions. I was a communicator mission control. That's where I really learned to be an astronaut. The mission control communicator for 25 other missions. Here's Hubble at KFC. We launched the thing. We found out we had the wrong mirror in the telescope. This is total negligence. You can read about it on the internet, Hubble Mirror Accident Report. But I got to fix that too. So I got a mission. I got a mission now, 13 broken systems. My family, Holly, and my other 7 kids, I got 7 kids. The oldest is 58 and the youngest is 12. Yes. The oldest 58 and the youngest is 12. Hey, but don't worry, man, we got tomorrow. We're not done. You understand? We're not done. Okay? That's what I'm talking about, right? Tomorrow. And so, focus, concentration. You go in the water tank. You go in the water tank because it's a little bit freedom, like three-dimensional freedom, like 0. But I show you the picture because I asked the divers, you show me a better way to work. You push me aside, you show me how to do it. You ask people to speak up. That's the best solution. I did the same thing in medicine. Anyone in this room that sees a better way to do this business, if you're uncomfortable with how it's going, you tell me, and we're going to change that. I got an operating room nurse. She's been in the job for 30 years. She knows more than I do, and I know that. And she's going to tell me, how we doing? We're doing great or we're not doing so good. She'll help you if you let her, okay? I went to the Smithsonian, not that Hubble's flying up there. I don't have a high-fidelity mock-up. That engineering qualification unit in Washington, D.C. was guaranteed to have same measurements. I took my tools and my instruments there to see fit and function, see it at work. You see, I'm after stupid details again. Now, tomorrow I'm going to the vacuum chamber. The highest test you can do is to go in the vacuum chamber at flight temperatures. What's flight temperature? A spacewalker won't Mother Earth, because Earth on average is 59. I know this winter, summer, this night, day, but on average Earth 59, even for 400 miles, my suit will be 59 Fahrenheit if you give me enough Mother Earth. Blackness of space is minus 460. So you trade off those two things. Well, it's a very complicated mission, and the pointer, the person during the spacewalk that's controlling my attitude, could not get me enough Mother Earth, and they asked me to run at minus 120 Fahrenheit. I said, it ain't going to work. My tools won't work. I can't work. I fought with him for months. Okay, I lost the battle. We got to go do it. So it hurt so bad. My fingers stung so bad. You're up to 8 hours, and they got comfortable. Jeez, they didn't warm the place up. I got 8 dead fingers. So I came by that. This is 6 months before flight, and your lead spacewalker, the fixed Hubble, got 8 dead fingers. And so I not only have to choreograph and how I'm going to do the tools, I have to have my imagination. I find out how much flesh and how many fingers I'm going to have to do the job. Now, NASA could have said, for God's sake, it's the most important mission we've ever flown, and we're 6 months before flight, and why don't we maybe replace him? But no, he's a goddamn farm kid. He's been run over so many times. He'll get the job done this time, too. So, yes, I will get the job done. So, did they take a risk? I don't know. We fixed the problem. We found the problem, and I toasty warm mission. I flew good. This is the Hubble crew, and this is the most outrageous. You're going to go fly it tomorrow. So you fly your T-38 by, you fly it by, you get permission. This is the most outrageous. How you're going to get in that thing tomorrow and go fly, and you're flying this beautiful airplane going by. And people say, which one? You that one or that one, Story? I'm the third one out here taking a picture of those two. So, and away we go into space after 18 years. Now, I've been doing this for 18 years, designing the Hubble, going out the door. And, of course, we face this. We deserved it. We deserved it for the mirror, but all those other failures should not have happened. When failures happen early, it's quality or it's design. And so with early failures, they're bad. They didn't wear out. So we deserved all that kind of stuff. I don't take that with me. I don't worry about it. I got a great plan. I trained with the greatest athletes in the world, Dorothy Hamill one of them. You know what Dorothy does? She's working on a plan for when the music starts. She works. She converges on a final solution. She does it. I looked at how athletes arrive at perfection. They've been doing it for thousands of years. You know what I do? When I go out the door, I'm an athlete. Me and the tool's going to do a dance. I'm an athlete. So I borrowed from them their kind of perfection. And I climb poles with these guys. That's a spacewalker. But just to hurry up and finish up here, after Irma, Duke Energy, they had heard about me. I'd worked with other utilities. After they cleaned up the mess, they said, Story Musgrave, come on out here and climb a pole with us. So I climbed a pole. So it's the same thing. I raised their bar, they raised my bar. But they did admit to me, when Story, you're a pole, we don't have the juice on. We can't afford to electrocute you. That's, okay, I'm out there after 18 years. And it's the real team. I don't have time. They're the real team. I want the up there and I want the help. So that's the box that took to the mirror. That's the big camera bringing the pictures, the brand new solar arrays. Okay, so I only got so much. I got to finish up. My baby's gone. Talking to President Clinton's melancholy said, okay, folks, I don't celebrate victories. I do not celebrate victories. I'm humble and I'm thankful that destinies allowed me to get the job done. I could have been stopped. And I got another mountain to climb tomorrow. So that's it. I'm not wild over victories. I don't come for the victory. I come for being on the playing field, being the best I can. So home we come. How's Hubble doing? That's before and that's the after. You know those kind of pictures 2 years ago, 25th anniversary. I had dinner with the Nobel Prize winners, the one for Nobel for the expansion of the universe. So I've been a professor here, and this is my ground, and I just adore it here. I love the place. Been here for 13 years, applied minds. So yeah, designer, engineer, that kind of stuff. I teach the same thing I'm doing tonight. I do this for groups, for people, professionals, companies, and that kind of stuff. It's be the best you can, explore the possibilities and evolution of you and your company. And so, Intel, I did this painting for Intel. They asked me what's the future of the world. I just regressed 55 years ago when I went from computers to biological systems. And so there's the electronic systems. Here's the biological systems, tighter and tighter connections. So that's the world we all live in. But every solution I come up with, people, is a socially technically networked solution. So I run a palm farm. Of course, farm kid. I've raised 9,000 palm trees. I'm a landscape. I create these kind of parcels. You put the home in there. These people wanted to be in water. I dug that lake. Every single palm tree I grew from seed. This is the kind of landscape that I produce at your front yard. And so, of course, I have a farm old tractor that's 70-some years old, just like the one I drove. Now, this is a little story. So she's been riding this stuff since age 2 weeks. I have to carry her 2 weeks. When she got to be 2 months, I would strap her to various hoods of the equipment I actually strapped her up here. So she up in here, learning her geometry, learning her engineering, and you say, why no pictures? My mother says this is not normal. And if I find any pictures out there, you're going to get in big trouble. And so I still operate that kind of stuff, but here's the girl at 7. She's much more precocious than Dad. And so, but this is only her mechanical world. But the lesson is for all of you. The lesson is not my little story, Musgrave. The lesson is a little kid comes in the world, what experiences you do to grow them, to bring them into the future. And so people complain about no shoes. I give her shoes, but she won't wear them. So it's got to be okay. The dog don't have shoes either. Now, this is my new airplane designed for National Geographic. Take people where no humans had ever been. It's been built by elementary school kids. You see the kids at work? There's always 4 hands on that. You look at the work. They're learning engineering. They're learning how to make stuff, mechanical work. This is Sebring, Florida. You can send people here. It's Sebring, Florida. And so, and this became a school program. This is my little story, and that's a school teacher. The kids went to school and told them what they're learning, so the school says it's going to become a course. So the school teachers come out and they teach the kids this. That's a school teacher, you see. That's my little girl right there. Look at the engagement, you see. And look, there's always 4 hands on the tool. It's just outrageous what they're doing, and it's a parent thing. That's Dad and that's son. And that's the designer of this airplane. He's part of this process. He's teaching us this. And so there you go. I'm going to take every one of those kids into the Bahamas, and they're going to go flying in my machine. Now, Virgin Galactic, me and Little Story, we got it going, yeah. Me and Little Story are getting ready to go fly into space again. If we pull it off, we will be the oldest and the youngest person to go into space and to do it on the same flight. So we'll do it on Virgin Galactic. We may do it on Blue Origin. So there's Blue Origin. That's the actual facility they have down at Kennedy Space Center. And so, you want me to go back here for the action? Okay, with Walter Cronkite, how do I sum? You're going to get me this or I keep going. Okay. Just hit this little button right there. Hit that button there. Okay. It's that little button. You want me to do it? Sorry. I can do it.
You want to switch it back?
Well, I can do it. You want me to do it on this thing?
I think so. You got it.
Okay.
I got it there. I don't know how to get it back. Yeah, it's still thinking.
Nope. It's okay. We'll go from there. We'll finish up. I'll go from there. I can go from there. Oh, we can finish from here. With Walter Cronkite, how do I sum this thing up? At the launch pad, you know. And so, okay, who are we and where are we trying to go? That's a Cassini picture of Saturn, but this is us. Whoops. That is us. That is Mother Earth. We're on our own spaceship going through. So that's the perspective we need to have. And here's a Voyager picture from billions of miles of Mother Earth. That is who we are. That's what we got to think about ourselves. Space flight is pursuit of the universe, but it's also pursuit of humanity's place and who we should be. With your feet solid in Mother Earth, your head and heart in the heavens, you go forward, taking advantage of all the opportunities that come this way. Now, it was massively instructional that I was with a bunch of young kids and their parents just 3 weeks ago, and one daddy asked this 3-year-old little girl, who do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be me. That's it, folks. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. It means so much to us to have you here. It's a great start, and we've got a lot more. Our next speaker is a UX design practitioner, an innovator with a passion for creating meaningful user experiences. His user experience in product design work spans automotive,
I'll get out of here.
mobile,
No worries, you're okay.
home, healthcare, enterprise spaces, plus entertainment and content spaces. He pioneered the first smartphone, satellite phone, and e-book for Motorola, and has created international award-winning consumer electronics products, and holds over 30 U.S. and international patents. He has a BS and MBES, Industrial Design, and an MS in Product Design, and an MBA. He's adjunct faculty at ArtCenter and University UC Irvine, and their Donald Bren School of Information and Computer Sciences, and he teaches courses related to human factors and design psychology. Please join me in welcoming Shri Jambhekar.
Oh, thank you. So you can see what a hard act this is to follow, but I'm going to take the risk. This is the topic, and I'm going to just follow, right? So, again, Story talked a lot about passion to pursue. And sometimes you just focus, and just the way he has been doing, but he has done it in maybe so many different fields, but I was focused more on product design right since the beginning, after my engineering school or so. And that also was a chance because those times, no internet. There wasn't much information available about the courses that were in some really good universities back in India. And my dad's friend just happened to find a catalog and found this master's program in design. And that was a perfect spot for me because I had originally learned sculpting at my uncle's studio, and then I had done engineering, and that combined, that just kind of said, okay, this is it. So I'm going to show you a couple of perspectives from my side. I think I'm going to just use the mouse here. Some of the factors that influence risk-taking, just from my own experience, right? Let's see. So chasing butterflies. So this is like a little story way back when I was in 9th grade. And our biology teacher asked us to actually catch butterflies. And guess the person who didn't come back with a butterfly? It was me. And I just took a risk of being scolded by the teacher because I really loved the butterflies in flight. I didn't want to study them in a formaldehyde jar, right? And my teacher was amazing because that's the first great lesson I learned. He was empathetic to me. He said, yes, this kid just values life, and I'm not going to do anything about it. Just sit back. So that was my first lesson in taking chances. It kind of bolstered me a little bit in doing other things. And so the next thing that happens 15 years later, I had a brand new job at Motorola as their first futurist in terms of industrial design. So I was a strategic design planner. And first 3 months, they asked me to present to the board. At that time, Motorola was a Fortune 15 company at that point in time, and it was the #1 player in cellular markets. They actually invented the cellular phone, right? And I was there. They asked me to actually talk about design, the future of design. And I kind of didn't really know when I say baby in a tiger's cage. I was the baby, and they were the tigers, and I had absolutely no clue who they were, right? This is 3 months. And I just delivered whatever I needed to tell. And as I'm walking out, one of the strategy directors, she's smiling, and I said, Pam, did I just lose my job? And she said, no, they just bought it, whatever you told. And that kind of gives you this confidence, right? It builds that confidence. But it was surely, just the unknown in terms of how Story walks into some of these unknowns. And so that was my first experience with getting the experience in becoming bold and getting that confidence as a professional, right? So here we're kind of practicing our art. We're learning our craft in detail and a lot. But then when you go out in the real world, it's a totally different world altogether, right? And so being fearless. I think this is out of order a little bit, but that's what being fearless is. I actually had when I walked into that room, I had told myself, I am the CEO of the company called me, and that's how I'm going to operate, right? And that's what happened, right? And so I think what that gave me was that confidence, and they started bringing me in for these amazing projects that I've done. So in that sense, I've been very fortunate, in that sense, lucky, right? Just to be at the right place at the right time when they were starting this big stuff. And this little story about globe-trotting globes is the world's first satellite phone. So right here is the globe that has traveled many, many times around the Earth. And what I was told as a challenge, and designers are kind of brought in to solve problems, right? So their problem was, hey, we got to create about $1 billion worth of investment. How are we going to tell these very rich people like the Prince of Saudi Arabia what this complex system is, and how are we going to get that investment? And so I created this globe, and this is what you see is about 66 satellites orbiting around the Earth with about 32 cells in here. and they are about 425 miles up in the air. These are 66 satellites, and going with that system is this phone. So that's kind of what the story was. That kind of started. In fact, I was telling somebody, telling Petrula today, that the Golub became so famous around that they lost it in Hong Kong at the airport, and it was sent back to the Motorola corporate headquarters saying this is yours or something of that sort, right? So again, talking about phones and revolution, I think the world has changed drastically today, but these are the pioneers, right? This is why we have our smartphones today. So this is John Mitchell. He was a former CEO and vice chairman of the board. That's the Dynatac. That's 1973. And I worked for him directly on this program. So you can imagine the pressure as a 30-year-old professional industrial designer working with this guy who can actually, I was telling earlier a story, who could take a yellow legal pad and do calculus and tell the scientist out in Arizona that your orbits are wrong. That's the kind of engineering confidence he has. That's kind of what Story has also been telling. So this is 1993. They actually announced this program, $2.5 billion. And Motorola, being Motorola at that time, they took a bet, $2.5 billion, and they said, we're going to prove that this is possible. So it was a purely technological challenge that they took, but they had to sell it somehow. So they kind of created this kind of a hokey story about marketing it to the farmers in India or in Africa where there are no cell connections or so. The reality was that people at that point of time didn't even send a postcard, right? Let alone think about a $5 a minute phone call with a $1,300 phone, right? So this program, so this one, in terms of risk, they took this amazing risk because they had that confidence, technical confidence, right? And it was a complete failure, an epic failure. So luckily, it got salvaged by some smart ex-executives of Motorola. They bought it for pennies, and now our special forces use this, and so do our explorers out in Antarctica and everywhere else. It's still operational, right? And so this is that program. So again, taking technical risks. So companies that have that kind of a confidence in technology, that kind of resources, they will do these kind of things, right? And then, so in my first meeting, they said, Shri, now we're designing the phone, right? How is it going to be? So I'm sitting with some of the top antenna experts in the world, and one of them, Jim Phillips, I remember very clearly. The very first day he was given this challenge, he said, we'll have to flood the earth with mineral oil to make this work, right? And in about 4 weeks' time, he came up with a helical antenna that is actually in here, right? That would meet the kind of standards, about 14 decibels or something gain in it, or some numbers that they were talking about in terms of voice and data quality, right? And this is a satellite phone. So this, you can see, the Ariane's constellation is about 66 satellites around. It's a network that is unique, that covers whole Earth, including poles, oceans, and airways. Something very, very unique, never done before. Very unique challenges. You can see our face here, something at an angle, but that antenna always has to be above so it can catch the 3 satellites, at least minimum of 3 satellites. That was the biggest challenge in design, right? So you can actually see when this is an old design, and the world is probably, these things are still similar looking, but you can see me talking this way, and this is higher than my head, right? So it was an articulating antenna. We did a lot of work. Here's that one of the original models, I guess. I still happen to have it, how this antenna kind of tilted when it opened up, right? So designers and all of us, problem solvers, right? We're called upon to take on these very interesting new kinds of things that we've never been before. And what this does is this just kind of slowly creates expertise in your domain. But it has to be backed by resources as well, right? So we have these antenna experts, these engineers, amazing engineers, who could put this extremely complex system together, just like the space shuttle program or so, right? So the next thing that happens is working on the world's first working smartphone, right? So this is the first smartphone. They said, like, we got to create something that's the next step. Oddly enough, they were the ones that got left behind because they did not take the step from going from analog to digital, and Nokia beat the hell out of them, right? So that's them, as in Motorola at that time, right? And so that's really the story about not taking risk. But in this particular case, I was given this program, and that's kind of interesting to look at. This is a carved out old Elite phone with all the electronics put in. This is the world's first 320 by 240 touchscreen black and white display. And at that time, today we carry these flat pieces of hardware, right, like this. But those times, people still wanted the touch of a button. So I came up with an idea where the flip would, when it would close, you could dial it like a regular phone. When it opened, it went into a smartphone mode, right? So these are the kind of little tricks that you would do just to solve problems, right? But you see, this is a big and ugly thing, but this is the worst, the very first, the beginning of a smartphone. A couple of other things. So then, when they commercialized it, it first came out in China. And the reason it was called a smartphone, there was no internet on it that point in time, was because it had apps on it. This is a Tai Chi phone where you could actually do handwriting. It did handwriting recognition. So you could send messages. So this is a very, very cool technology at that point. This is like 1996 or something. So again, confidence in you will come with practice, right? And not being afraid and just do your stuff. That's really what it is. The next one is, of course, we are now here. This is the Google Pixel. Taking risks is also a matter of resources and good decisions, right? So when you looked at Motorola's, they had tremendous resources today. Google has those kind of resources. Amazon has those kind of resources. Apple has those kind of resources. So they can take these tremendous risks that we don't even know what they're doing, right? And so one of the questions that Petrula had asked me before is about Google's Home versus the Alexa, right? The Echo. And of course, although Google, we think, was behind because Alexa came along first, it's really all about resources and what is underneath. On the top, both of them are kind of competing for this conversational voice, what we call, right, which I worked at Motorola Labs about 20 years ago. We had a whole bunch of brilliant scientists, but it's only today that you're seeing that technology happen. But what is underneath it is all that data that's being mined, right? And whoever has that figured out, the machine learning, et cetera, will really win that race, right? Because we're talking about both companies having tremendous resources. The next one, of course, we talk about creativity here, and we talk about perfection here. In this place, we practice that, right? We practice and practice and practice. But there's also some amount of pragmatism you learn through practicing your art, right? When you go out in the real world today, if you are a perfectionist, you won't be able to survive in the real world, right? Unless you're an astronaut like him. Part of it is because people will not know the difference between 0.275 millimeters of a radius to a 0.70 radius, right? So as a practitioner, you have to be really pragmatic and how to build these kind of things you need to know, because there's a market being lost or an opportunity being lost or millions of dollars being lost in the amount of man hours or people hours being lost, right? And so you have to take it, so that will be your next step. What I see is that pragmatism will come with your practice, right? Right now, you need to focus on that creativity that you have and that you're perfecting your art, right? Because then everything will just become automatic, yeah? So this is another very interesting question that I ask my class, which I teach here, is why do you think there were these kind of lines around the block when an iPad came along or an iPhone came along? Any ideas? Why? Cult? That time I think it was forming, right? Because there was just the first time people had seen this kind of things, right?
So amazing.
Yeah, so absolutely. And what else you think? Any other adjectives that come to your mind? No, so I have a bunch of them. So success, when I talk about it, I talk about success factors, starting from success factors and trying to measure them. So whenever you start your projects, in the beginning, you set success factors first, saying to your teacher or your advisor, I'm going to do this project, and this is how we're going to measure success, right? Because at the end of that conversation, if you met those success factors, there is no argument whether you failed or not, right? So that's kind of, so it's one of my class lectures. I think I just did it last Friday. And so when you talk about success factors, these people didn't just pursue yet another hardware piece, right? They weren't going to do yet another phone, right? So what they did, something was interesting. It's a very different perspective. What they really started with these kind of things that they want to evoke in people, right? And, oh, sorry, let me go back. And that's what they worked on first. And this is the result of that, right? It isn't some new piece of hardware or this great technology or all these, how many kind of things we can get into this little thing. It is this experience that they wanted to evoke and they worked on. And this is exactly why they are so successful. When I remember when this thing first came out, just when you touch the screen and what the response time was, it was perfect. It met my expectation. When I used the Galaxy 1 at Samsung, the processor was a little slower. It didn't meet my expectations. So they had to kind of start their new processors, right? Put them right away. So this is that part that is also something that you will have to kind of think about. And then this is something a very different perspective from my side. I belong to a community in India that is one of the most risk-averse communities, right? We pursue intellect. We try to get jobs that are secure, especially governmental jobs, so they are for life. And I think it has to do with that satisfaction, the validity that you get about taking care of your family or whoever had taken risks. My parents took a tremendous risk just sending me out here to grad school, right? They had basically collateral their building, their home, right? And little did they know that this is where I would be, right? So when we talk about that, again, you have to see that into that perspective as well. So there will be times when you kind of will be stopped, right, in your own kind of this notion of following the passion and everything else. And I think Story mentioned something really great. He mentioned about love and rationality. The risk-averse people rationalize every action, and hence they get stopped. And so that's kind of my community that I come from. I don't know how I kind of got out of it. And so again, and so they always take the safe and proven path, like what Story was saying, right? So those are the kind of perspectives I kind of share today with you. And then, so again, this was all about economic stability. Whereas I know that there are communities in India that I absolutely, just by their last name, I can tell, these people are going to take the best risks. They're going to be very prosperous. They're going to go somewhere, do something completely crazy. Today, you will find an Indian even in Falkland Islands, right? And that's a specific community that is able to do that. The Indians that came here first in the US, they came in as California farm workers. That is about 100 years ago, right? Those are the people who can take risks, right? So again, just that's my talk. So thank you for indulging me for such a long time. Thank you. Cheers.
I'm super excited to introduce you to our final presenter. She's worked with Lee Clow's purview, within Lee Clow's purview, spearheading brand communication. Engaging talent, the likes of Dave Fincher and Spike Jones. She directed and produced Apple's Think Different, author of the book Albert Strayhouse's Running School, and served on several boards, including Philip Johnson's last time. Her career is entwined with purpose, leading communications for SQ, Conservation International, One Love, the Red Campaign, Feeding America, Rock the Road, and Vet Friends. Her passions include the arts, conservation, education, and social justice. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Golub.
Hello.
There you go. You just want to go regular?
Yeah, I just want to go.
Okay. Cool. I'll bring it up in a sec.
Okay. Some friends here tonight. Thank you. That's a good slide for me too. I can work with that. There we go. First, I want to thank Petrula for this incredible honor and to be at this institution. I feel really prideful. I'm going to make this a little bit more personal because I think I've lived a big life, surely not this life. But I want to be able to connect with you guys where you're at this point in your lives. And I love this idea about risk. And it forces a lot of reflection in terms of what are the risks that one takes in one's life. I do want to say that I love my work. It's a guiding force for me. So for some people it's for family. Sometimes it was controversial how much I love my work. But I really hope for all of you that you find the passion that I find. I race to work every day. I wake up, it's the first thing I do. I don't work out, I don't do anything else. I work, and I love it. So what are some of the risk benchmarks? And I think a lot of you here have already experienced a level of risk in your lives. I think the first level of risk is defining oneself as an artist. And I'm sure many of you have encountered that. You know, as we just heard in this last speech, it's controversial. You know, culturally, it's not a safe choice. A lot of you have left home and what felt safe. A lot of you are studying here in a second language, so there's the unfamiliar, and that's an intrepid choice. It's risky to be a professional woman. I could leave that for another time in depth. And there's the risk of being independent, and can you really sort of fulfill a life of security? And there's a risk also of choosing a corporate structured path. There's a risk to having a child, and what does that do to your career? And now I can speak confidently about the risks in aging in an ageist society. So I encourage all of you to love your work and to fail up. I'm a big believer in failing up and trying all these things. I don't really believe, and it sounds kind of unscientific, if you will, but I don't believe that I could have had any. I basically am a storyteller, and I work for clients, and I've played like some big games, and I've been with big guys who really, really needed my help. And I don't think I could have confidently sat across from the table and convinced them of what we needed to do. Because to be a really masterful storyteller, especially in the short format that I do, takes confidence. And I don't believe I could have done that if I wasn't confident as an individual. I just believe that. I needed to sit at that table and be self-knowing because they could read that. So how do I feel about being an artist? I think it's the most important choice I've made in my life. I think we're a chosen few. And when you meet like-minded artists, you're at home. And I think that also addresses the question of home. For those of you who've left safe homes, your parents are like, no, don't go, please come back. But you're actually finding a home wherever you go because you have this like-minded affinity with other people. I had the great privilege to do a Per Soul campaign where I hired artists all over the world and photographed them and commissioned works. And I was astounded by how I felt at home in New Delhi and I felt at home in Beijing because I connected with these people. And and I think there's a modern redefinition of the idea of home. Being a woman professional is really hard. There's still enormous amount of bias. I confront it every day, literally every day. But I think that clients and our companies are recognizing that they have to have diverse voices to best serve our clients. And now I have to say that being older has helped as well because there's a very, very large aging audience, and I feel an affinity with that. And having a child, I have to say, was the most creative act of my life because having a child teaches you compassion, teaches you listening, it teaches you flexibility, you have to adapt. Anything that you've planned or scheduled and regimented gets thrown out of the window, and you have to punt. And as Story is so eloquently saying, it's, you're bringing a person into the world, and what do you want to share with them, and what do you want to teach them? And it's a, you know, it was a cause of reflection every day of what is it that I want to share. And I have an amazing daughter and amazing love in my life, having made that choice. That said, I left her a lot with strangers. Like, hey, I'm shooting in Prague, it's only a week, she's terrific, and I'll be right back. I did a lot of that, but we made it work. So I'm going to share with you some work. I have the great fortune to be part of a small group now called Mal for Good. Why Mal for Good? Well, Mal was the ad agency that we created for servicing Apple, and we basically needed the confidentiality of a separate building with eye scans and thumbprints and all sorts of confidentiality just to work on new products. It stands for Media Arts Lab. We like the irony of Mal for Good. So that was kind of fun. I didn't get to this work easily. I worked on crap for years. I worked on Jell-O, Kentucky Fried Chicken. I actually finally stopped the terror at a smokeless cigarette. And that's when I said, I just can't, I have to find someone with integrity. I had the great fortune to be studying Lee Clow's work. I don't know if any of you know Lee Clow, but he's this beautiful person. And if you can find someone in your life to attach yourself to, I've just been incredibly fortunate. I found this fantastic hippie in Los Angeles. And I never dreamed that I'd leave New York, but I met this person, and he told me he's going to buy me a surfboard next year when it's my 30th anniversary. That's going to be interesting. So I worked on a lot of junk, and then when I came to first came to Chiat Day, it was a lot of fun because my first campaign was Energizer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Energizer campaign. I made 33 bunny commercials. And it was fun to spoof everything that I never wanted to work on, so that was really fun. It was really tongue-in-cheek and fun. And I got a taste of what it meant to make something that was really sticky and cultural. And that was a lot of fun, like to be home and see David Letterman taking a baseball bat and smacking a bunny's head, and so it's like, oh, that's culture. So that felt really good. So anyhow, lots and lots of work. Nissan basically touched every brand at Chiat. And then sort of the big day came. And this was also mentioned earlier, and I want to emphasize it. I was always the first one in and the last one out. I was there every Christmas, every new business pitch. I think I had taste, but I had work ethic. And I was reliable, and I finished things. I got it done. I problem solved. I was resourceful and dependable. And I think those qualities can't be underestimated. And so one day, Lee Clow touched my shoulder. He brought me into an edit bay. And Steve Jobs had just returned to his company. I know this is impossible to imagine, but I'm going to try to paint a picture for you. It was 1997. Any of you born yet? Probably barely. And Apple had 3% market share. So IBM was enormous. And this was this fledgling little company. And Steve had just wiped the slate clean of all products that had existed. He was going to redesign them. And he didn't have anything new that was ready. But he had media buy, and he had to announce that he was back. And so what could we do for him? And they had started, someone had written the words, think different. And they had started on this idea of the crazy ones. The only problem was, when Lee brought me into the edit bay, and we argue about this all just this morning, about how horrific it was. He's like, but I sold the idea. But it was Seal singing, you're never gonna survive unless you're a little bit crazy. And there were some pictures of like Mandela and Ali, but then it was mixed with like Cirque du Soleil crazy footage. And he said, we have 17 days to be on air. And I was like, well, this is horrific. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's just so bad. And he said, and he like, if you ever see him, you have to notice his eyes are like a basset hound's. They're kind of like puppy dog. And he blinks when he gets nervous. And he's like, please, you know, and his appeal to me was make it beautiful. And I said, I'll do this, but you have to make sure that everyone's out of the room. I have to own this. You have to trust me. He said, it's yours. So you may have seen this. Just a very quick story about it, because I know it's iconic. I want you to know we shared with Steve 6 different versions of this the night before we decided what to ship. We actually shipped 2 of them. because Steve was so brilliant and so much smarter than all of us, I had to give him choices. So you'll see these visuals. If you can imagine, I had Robert Frost reading The Road Less Traveled By over these images. And I also had a completely original script, but ultimately we chose this. And is there volume? Yeah.
Here's to the crazy ones. The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers. The round pegs in the square holes. The ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
I cry when I see that. I think I still have PTSD. I just want to say, when I sat across Steve and presented my list to him, I had very carefully split it to women and men, that there would be business leaders, there would be artists, there would be different people represented, and I was very certain that I wanted a child at the end who represented the world. So I think there's certain clues in here to Steve's sensibility that what Steve really made, it was so interesting when he held up that iPad. Steve was making a tool of social justice. Steve was inventing the personal computer. He was giving computers in each of your hands for education and for self-expression. And this man was desperate. I mean, I was sitting at the table with a person who was desperate, and everyone calls him a dick, and everyone says these terrible things about him, but it's because he's smarter than all of us, and he needed to hold on to that 3% who believed in him. And he said to me, he said, I need to speak to the artists. And I suddenly felt like, I'm at the right place. You've got the right girl. I'm ready for this. Bring it. And so all that work that I had done in sort of understanding myself as an artist, I was prepared to work with this guy and give him what he needed. So we formed this agency for social justice. This Conservation International is a very, very interesting conservation organization. It's basically staffed with a combination of lawyers and scientists. It's not about collecting plastic bags and like collecting cigarette butts from the beach. It's conservation at scale. I really didn't understand it until I really spoke with this guy, Peter Seligman, who does negotiations with the likes of Starbucks and Walmart. He speaks to Walmart about sustainable fishing practices, everything from where they source fish and how they transport it. Starbucks in terms of their water usage. So massive negotiations at scale. Very, very interesting guy. I think the most beautiful thing about this work I'm about to show you is the strategy, because we've all become so immune to seeing devastation. And so the insight was, what if nature spoke, but you still felt the beauty of nature, but nature was pissed off. So here's Julia Roberts as Mother Nature. This is one of about 20 spots that's been translated and activated all over the world.
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
You know, a lot of, as students, a lot of you don't have budgets to do, fancy work. It's very interesting working with foundations because they don't have budgets for production. That's all stock footage. Most of it's from BBC, Planet Earth. Julia donated her time. The sound studio donated their time. I mean, this is made on fumes. So it's a question about being a curator and, some mastery of craftsmanship. The next project I'm going to share with you, we did recently. This is a foundation that was formed on behalf of a young woman named Yardley Love. She was attacked by her boyfriend 2 weeks before graduating UVA and died in relationship abuse. And I sobbed my daughter's graduation thinking that, this family didn't get to have this experience, seeing their daughter, survive college. So the family started this foundation, and the ambition of the foundation is to identify the signs of relationship abuse and what escalation looks like, both for victims, perpetrators, and witnesses and friends and community. So this is a kind of a case study film. We made a whole suite of 10 different films sort of acting out what does jealousy look like versus other kinds of actions and how it ratchets up. So here's the story of the campaign we just did for One Love.
1 in 4 men will experience relationship abuse in their lifetime. And this abuse is often experienced for the first time by young adults, ages 18 to 24. The same young adults who spend more time on social media than any other demographic. And it's no secret that when it comes to social media, we like to post the best version of our relationships. But here's the thing. If young people only have picture-perfect memories to look back on, they can convince themselves that an abusive relationship isn't so bad after all, especially when it's being validated by their friends' likes and comments. So One Love set out to remind young people that real life happens behind the post. At the heart of the campaign was a short film, which featured a couple in a progressively worsening relationship and the impact social media played in it. Within the film, we subtly infused all 10 warning signs of an unhealthy relationship and then extracted 10 Instagram films, each of which was dedicated to one of those signs. We posted these 10 films as seemingly picture-perfect moments, but when people clicked the beautiful image to watch the video play out, they were met with the ugly truth behind the post.
Will, stop!
All elements of the campaign drove people to behindthepost.org, where they could take a deeper dive into the warning signs of unhealthy relationships and learn how to take action if they found themselves or a loved one in a similar circumstance. The campaign generated more than 13 million views and 38 million impressions in just over 1 month. But more importantly, it was so powerfully relatable that it created a community of people who were no longer scared to hide behind their painful experiences. Instead, they felt empowered to share their own personal behind-the-post stories. For those who engaged with the campaign, the message was decidedly clear. When it comes to abusive relationships and social media, you can't always see the big picture through the small ones.
And the final piece that I wish to show you, I didn't, oh no, I have two more. Do I have time? How more? Ah! Okay, I'm going to show this because it's great. I had the privilege of judging an award show in Dubai, and this is a project in Saudi Arabia where it just became legal for women to drive, providing that their husbands or fathers or male in the family supports it. Brilliantly, Nissan and actually our sister agency in the region produced this campaign.
You may be interested to know that a few minutes ago, a royal decree has been issued in Saudi Arabia giving women the right to drive.
This was received in the Western world, but in Saudi Arabia, not everybody is happy. Explain what the reaction was.
كان بابا أول شيء كان مرة مصدومة كان رافض هذا القرار كثيرة وإنه حتخش في وصيف ومدري إيش عنه من ذا الكلام.
They'll still have to get permission from a male in the family before getting their license.
Women in Saudi Arabia don't need special car offers, they need confidence.
They've invited Saudi women to a driving lesson. Oh, wait until you see who the instructors are.
People around the world are using #SheDrives to show their support and share driving tips. They've turned their Instagram page into a driver's guide for women with driving tips and questions for them to learn until June comes.
هذا الموضوع حيصبح في يوم من الايام هيستوري.
طبعا طلع لي في الاخر
Okay, and finally, this is my favorite campaign of all, and I didn't do it. But I love this. I'm jealous of it because it's so clear, it's so simple, it's so direct, and people Instagram this and they share it. It's not media dependent. This is a beautiful activation that I really believe helped fuel the Me Too movement. There's been lots, McCann Erickson. So lots of things have contributed to Me Too, and I really love how when you study a movement, you say, how do you really activate a lot of people? And it's rarely one thing. It's a combination of things. So what I leave you with today is you're all brave. Do beautiful things. Find the thing that you love. And I appeal to you to think about what you're making and what you're putting into the world. And hopefully, your creativity and talents can help lift society and make a contribution to make it a better place. So thank you.
Up, and we're going to move this table over right here. Chairs. Shri, you would give your microphone.
help?
Hey.
Chairs?
There's no chairs, thank you.
Yes, great.
Test.
Chair, please. Yeah, the speakers are going to be out there. I'm going to ask some questions here. So we're just waiting for something that we usually have ready for you. We're going to be having you guys sit right around here. Can you?
I have 2 chairs.
Okay, great. Yeah, please bring them. Let's get that. This is right here.
Okay.
Thanks. Perfect. Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
You sure?
Stools if you want.
Chula's got a stool. Thank you. You sure? I think we're short now. Yeah? We're good? I think I'm attached. I'm good, thank you.
1, 2,
Thank
3,
you so much.
4, 5.
Appreciate it.
I have my notes.
Mark, this is lab number 3. Is that on? Okay. So you're in a room of ArtCenter students. What, in regards to how, let's see, both Story and Shri, you've taught students, and Jennifer, you've hired our students.
I like to put them to work.
And in regards to the process that they learn, do you think it is something that enables them to have that confidence? Or what with the confidence that you're talking about, all 3 of you made reference to confidence. How are they doing, and how do they gain more of that they need?
I'm working on it.
Okay. I'll go at it first, maybe. Thanks. I think it is by practice, first of all, right? And I know that sometimes it's pretty hard to kind of keep doing something and practicing your craft. Kind of gets tedious sometimes, but once you get great at it, then your next step is to build that confidence. And in my class, I have presentations, and I tell my students, we're not going to judge you on how you present. This is your first time, imagine, standing in front of a board and just talking. So just be yourself. And so that's the kind of also the practice that needs to be inculcated. And I believe many of the classes do that, right? Like have them present. And that in itself builds confidence, because now you're communicating something, communicating your ideas. As design students, we're great at communicating, right? Whether visually or in 3 dimensions or any which way. And but in the real world, you have to be able to communicate your ideas, have it across. So just building, just keep practicing is what I say, right? Just don't be afraid. Nobody's going to judge you on that presentation or so. So just keep practicing, and you'll get great at it.
Yeah, design school is absolutely fantastic in terms of giving people a project. Here's the project, here's what you got to design. So you got to design, you got to take it to the shop, you got to present it, and you got to support it. And so other schools don't do that. So I think it's really good for encouraging confidence and getting out on a job. And, you know, presentations and having to do it and having to come up with a portfolio. Here's what I do in life. Other people don't have to present a portfolio, they get a grade. Design students are, you know, and where you go in life is your portfolio. You had to do that thing. So they're used to getting the job done.
Anything, Jennifer?
I mean, there's so many lessons in starting. One factor I think is really important in sort of our work environment is collaboration. I've had to collaborate with a lot of people I really dislike, and it's really hard. I've been, you know, insulted, demeaned, you know, you name it, and it's very, very valuable to have that experience. Because teamwork is super important and mutual respect is super important. And I have to say that excellence always prevails. So just frigging be the best. And that's what I try to share with my my interns and, you know, young professionals, is just outdo everyone. And that just is undeniable. That kind of always wins the day.
Each of you talked about someone in your career that really saw the potential in you and created a situation where maybe they saw more in you than you saw in yourself at that time. Any insight on how these the students can find that, or does that person find you? How do those relationships kind of come together?
Maybe I'll take this again first. I think one thing I've done always, in whether it is here or any other job, is to ask for mentorship, right? I want to learn and learn and learn. And so that's the one part, you know, that will...
How do you ask for mentorship?
So it's something, again, I mentioned to you, think about yourself as the CEO of a company called You. With that simple confidence, and it's not arrogance, right? Confidence and arrogance are two different things, so just think about it. And with your, whatever that you have as your portfolio and what your potential is. And I think tenacity works, tenacity. I have been, I've always asked, and most of the time I'll get a yes, right? But if you don't ever ask, you will never get those projects. And so my tendency is to get the most complex projects that they can throw at me, right? Because that gets me better and better and better in what I do, like in my own craft, right? So that's...
Well, as a kid, I had absolutely nothing but discouragement. You ain't going anywhere. I just got beat up and nothing but just horrible discouragement that you're not going anywhere. And so that was the early years of my life up until my 20s. But my inspiration, I don't have to know that person personally. The people that inspire me, it's performance. It's on the playing field, and you run into people who are trying to do the best they can, and you raise the bar for each other. And I mean, a secretariat was an outrageous mentor for me. I knew the horse, I hugged the horse, and you go to Claiborne Farms Compare, you know, in Paris, Kentucky, and the people say, God, you're here again, get his horse. And so you go and hug the horse, you get the horse all over you, and before you leave, sir, it is for you that I live, and it's for you that I go forward. And so that's a mentor. And so anyone I see that is raising the bar and that is just giving the best they can, I'm massively inspired. And so those people are my mentor. Like that doctor who took the beaches with the Marines. So you run into people like that. But I am massively inspired and mentored by people and situations that I don't even know. It just makes my hair stand on end.
Jennifer?
I have to say, for a long time, I looked for a woman mentor. Is that gender specific? And I never found one.
Mentress?
Mentress.
There isn't. Is there a I don't think there's a mentress.
I couldn't find one. So I decided to just go with the guys and play big leagues. I mean, I literally was asked, you know, do you really think you could film a car? You know, it's crazy what I've been asked. I'm like, a car's like a big, soda can. It's just, of course I can light a car. It's the crazy the kind of stuff I've had to navigate. I'm actually now very prideful of mentoring women. Specifically, I love mentoring everyone, but specifically women, especially in their presentation and raising their voice and putting shoulders. I used to be a quiet person, and I just learned that that didn't work. Your work mostly could stand on its own legs, but you do have to express the philosophy and a point of view on it. Just recently, I instilled a mandate. Right now, there's only 3% women directors in our industry. And so I kind of threw it down for my team that 50% of the work that we do is with women directors, but not just 50% of the projects, but 50% of the income that we spent is with women. And that One Love series of films, a woman director won a Silver Lion at Cannes in the film category. It's the first time that a woman has won in the film category. So, I believe in incremental change.
Questions from you? Yes.
So thank you, first of all, so much for sharing so much amazing insight and wisdom. We've heard from all of you about calculated risks that you've taken that have very much paid off. I'm interested to know if there are any risks that you took that you subsequently regretted, or if there were risks that you didn't take that you kind of wish that you maybe had, professionally speaking.
That's a good question. I'll take that. When I was about to walk down the aisle with my dad, I said, I don't know. Is this a good idea? And he said, yeah, try it. If you don't like it, you do something else. Which I have done, by the way. But I don't regret it. I really learned through that. I think the big question I have, and it's interesting because Story mentioned it right when we met this evening, I have chosen really sort of a very risk-free path in that I have followed one person and stayed with one company for a very, very long time. I probably could have amassed more wealth had I taken the risk to be an independent business person. I never felt that I really had the skills to do that, and I wasn't confident at what juncture I could make that leap because the opportunities that came to me were so thrilling. Because right after Steve Jobs, we won Levi's, and then I went to San Francisco, and then it was Adidas, and then it was Ray-Ban, and I was in Italy, and it was just so good. So I often wonder, what if I'd started my own company? I think that's probably the only sort of nagging question, and so I've just decided to start my own company and keep my job, but have a place to put sort of independent projects. So I have both.
Story, Shri, any thoughts on risks that were
yeah, the last 21 years, I got piles of regrets. Well, you can't do the time work. You can't say, well, I want to go back there knowing what I do now. What have I done? Well, it's very clear, like the last 21 years, I've been so massively successful, but the success leads you down the success path. And so I think that I should have, instead of having these supersets of clients that I had, and they were super and they're marvelous and they challenged me in great ways, I still wish that 50% of my time and effort would have been in my own studio and I would have been an artist. And so I look at my time and my effort over the last 20 years as someone who moves other people toward excellence, exploration, and evolution, as my program showed. I've had a great set of clients. They adore me and they keep getting me back, but that's not the question. The question is what you should do in life. And I wish I had taken 50% of time and effort and I had been my own artist, my own graphic designer, had my own studio, and did my own kind of thing, as opposed to helping people do their thing. And so, but I don't know if risk is the underlying question there.
For me, I think one of the factors there is also being able to take on things that are uncomfortable. I have multiple times given up positions because they saw something very special in me, and I declined because probably I was not complacent, but I was in my own comfort zone, and I loved what I did. And so there are times when I do kind of not necessarily regret, but I look back and say, I wish I had taken that thing, and it would have led me into a completely different path. But here's what I am, where I am, right? So I've got to accept that as well. But it will happen to you many, many times, numerous times in your lengthy careers. That's going to happen to you. So I think be ready to do uncomfortable things, I would say. You know, and you will fail, and that's totally all right, right? Because you would have learned something from it. We always say, you know, you'll always learn from your mistakes. But again, every time you'll move forward, your decision making will get better and better and better, right, as a professional. So that's what I have to say.
Other questions? Yes.
I have a question for Jennifer. I know in the beginning of the presentation you talked about how you just wanted to say no to junk at that moment. I know some of us, as a young professional, we might not have the luxury to say no to junk. And do you have any advice or some words of wisdom for that?
I spent 7 years working on junk. I mean, I think there's value because you have to get your professional stride. So I don't think, you know, I don't think you can be too choosy. I think I could have made a leap sooner. Maybe I think I could have been discerning sooner. I had this feeling that I needed to be expert before I went to the super special place. I probably could have been a little less expert. But yeah, you know, I think it's very interesting. I'm working on Chiat Day is about to have its 50th anniversary, and I'm looking at the very, very early work that they did before they, you know, had successes, and they just killed it on the smallest things. It's so I think actually if you can work on a bad product and sometimes those are the biggest opportunities if you can turn it and make that something special. Maybe there's even more learning in that.
Other questions? Yes.
What was your biggest driving force when you first started out, whether that be servitude towards others, your schooling, I don't know, just something to lose, and is it still the same today?
I was poor. I mean, I had a full scholarship to college, so my father said he would pay the $250 for my illegal loft, but that was it. So if I wanted a bag of ramen, I had to earn it. And so I worked as a switchboard operator in a film production company while I went to school in order to pay for food. And one teacher actually gave me an A because he said every time I came I fell asleep and he felt so badly for me that he gave me an A. So I was definitely driven by survival.
And so that's the number one question that I don't have an answer for. I had a great biographer that did a great biography on me, and she went after it and she didn't get it either. And so the trite answer is you come in the world with DNA from your parents, and then your environment interacts with your genetics. That's the trite answer, and then that forms a human being and forms who you are. Well, as far back as I can remember, starting at the age of 3, I had a massive drive for curiosity, for exploration, for energy, for the next adventure. I don't know where they came from. In my 80s, it ain't stopped, and I don't know how to stop it, and I don't know where it came from. It's just there, and doggone it, I have to live with it.
And you don't want to stop. Oh, you have a great time.
But anyway, it's a fascinating question, and so there is a trite answer, but that's not the answer. And so I don't know where that comes from. So I'm taking a serious look at how people end up as people, as who they are. And I don't know a little bit about the genetics, but I look at the environment, and you say, how did they get there? And I got no idea how they got there. I just don't know. So how people become a human being and how where that drive comes from, I do have to admit total failure. I am a massively motivating person in terms of when I do what I do, people change. Tomorrow, they climb the next mountain, and I get emails forever about how they climbed the next mountain, the next graduate school, the next this, the next that. But I do know that I'm in total failure. If you ain't got that energy, I can't give it to you. If you're broken, I can't fix you. And I have to admit to that. If you're broken, I cannot fix you, and nobody gonna fix you. And so that's unfortunate.
So I've been,
Well, maybe someone can differ on that, but that has been my experience with a multitude of people.
For me, the drive comes from curiosity, which is how I was as a kid. Whenever we brought in toys, I just opened them up to see how it was. My parents' kind of rule was, if you can't put it back, it's your problem, right? That was one driving factor. The other part is also, I come from India.
Where did the curiosity come from?
Curiosity, I guess just...
Well, that's part of it, yes, but how come you got it?
I don't know.
I don't know either, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know where it came from. But
I got it too.
Right. It did drive me into different directions and looking at things and again and just maybe failing. I wasn't the best math student, but I still, kind of sheer tenacity. I finished my engineering school. So you have to just keep at it and at it and at it. And yeah, that's where part of it comes from, the drive, right? Yeah.
So I was reading in Michael Pollan's new book, How to Change Your Mind. He talks about how the human brain has evolved to diminish uncertainty. And that's how we have been able to survive, is to be able to diminish uncertainty. So the idea of the counter of that is creativity and risk-taking. So it is antithetical to our evolution and our community or family to actually be taking these risks. Any thoughts about that?
I agree with
it. More questions from you.
Yeah, that's survival. Yeah. That's the known path.
Well, I was.
And what works? What works? We're going to keep doing the work. And how I got here, we'll keep doing that because it worked. That did survive it. But you're right. It is anti-creative. It's anti the unproven path. The questions you raised.
I was asking Shri. We were talking about you, Story, and I said, well, is Story actually taking risks? He knows all of this stuff, and what is a risk to us is not a risk to him, because all he has to do is pattern, and it's clearer to him because he has either the education, the tenacity, the experience, and this leap of faith.
You're right. So I still don't have the answer to the question, but I don't know if I've ever taken risk.
I'd say that probably the biggest risk for me that I haven't taken is really taking a lot of time off. I think I was really scared about what happens to my career if I take too much time off. I took 3 months off when I had my daughter, and then they sent me on a job in the desert, and I was trying to pump and put it in the little refrigerator and kicking everyone out of the RV. It was 110 degrees out, and I came back from that job and was like, okay, I'll take another month. Another 4 weeks. What was I thinking? If I have one regret, is that I didn't take, I don't know, a month off in the summer to spend with my parents while they were still really, in their full powers. I have both my parents gratefully, but they're old now. I do have regrets that the value in your brain kind of recalibrating and sort of making discoveries in a restful state, and the things that you discover that you don't plan, I think I've missed out on that, and I think that was fear-based.
Yeah, I'm always thinking existentially. I'm thinking about where's the most fun. But for me, the fun is being on the playing field, meeting the greatest challenge. It doesn't look nice, but for me, it's what I live for. It's the greatest challenge. So that's where I have the most fun, and that's what I do.
So, Story,
It's fun.
You're teaching personal branding here at ArtCenter.
The last lecture I gave was personal branding, and I also teach differentiation. And as Stan will tell you, and Andy and Lane, every single talk I give does have personal and professional development as part of an underlying theme.
Jennifer, if you could teach a class here, any class, it doesn't even have to be about anything you do, what should students learn?
It's such a big question. This is going to be very specific to ArtCenter.
Great. That's great, because we're here.
Yeah. A lot of the students who I've met really had no sort of, or very minimal understanding of Los Angeles and a sense of place. I found everyone was working so hard that they were really sort of like glued to campus and sort of had a very sort of prescribed view of Los Angeles. So one of the first assignments I gave my students was everyone had to come back with an adventure, whether it was go see a Frank Lloyd Wright house or go to the Schindler House on Kings Road, like watch Jonathan Gould's film, City of Gold, but like tell me a story about where you are and why this is such a rich place. I do feel, it's very easy, especially as a designer and architect and filmmakers, you can be hours in edit bays and sitting at your computer and not really connecting with the world. And this is such a culturally rich and diverse place. It's just bountiful. And so I would urge that you kind of create your own sort of self-curriculum in terms of what you explore that's special here. And if I was to teach something, that's what I would hope to do, is to share some of those touch points.
Can we do that?
For me, I would ask you, how many of you have mentors, professional mentors, or mentors in the area that you absolutely love? How many of you have it? So what I would say to you, find the stuff that you love, find the best person who does that, and just go ask. You might be surprised they will give you that time.
It's really
just
great advice.
do that for yourself, right?
That's great advice.
And I think what happens is you'll learn from masters like these, and then you'll just gain that skill that you need, right?
It's true. Once that happens to you, you understand the power of it, about that generosity and giving back. So it's almost an obligation of people who are successful and have had others help them to help new, younger people. Good. Yes?
Was there ever a point in your career where your success scared you, where you didn't feel ready for the job at hand?
All the time. When I finished Think Different, I quickly grabbed my then 17-month-old daughter. By the way, 2 of her friends are in the audience. It just makes me want to cry. You're all grown up. And we went to New York because I just had to get away from where anyone could find me so I could recover. And I got this hotel room in Soho, and right around the corner was this image I had chosen of John and Yoko in bed, and it was huge. It was on Houston Street. It took up an entire block. And only then did I realize that something that I was whittling and crafting in this sort of like dark, sort of exclusive space changed the landscape of New York. And as we went around New York, there was everything we had made. It was a total media takeover. So there was Ali and Martin Luther King. We had a bus wrapped with Rosa Parks. We took over New York, and I was like, oh shit, this is huge. I got a little shaken. It's kind of hard to describe what that feeling is. But it was just the transition of doing something that was so private to something so public.